Hey guys, it's Alyssa, and I figured that it was time for another crazy story time. I was gonna do a prom makeup tutorial before, but I made one and then I accidentally deleted 20 minutes worth of footage. So good job. So this is some kind of like a combination of a few crazy work stories that have kind of driven me mad when I think back at these situations, because I tell these stories to a lot of people and honestly it even surprises myself like what happened. Anyways, back to the stories. My first story is when I worked for a clothing store. I'm not gonna say the store name because I feel like I don't want to like represent the store or anything like that. So with all these places, I've only worked at 2 places, but I'm not going to say their names. Okay, so I worked for a clothing store, and I obviously had to talk to customers and had to make them feel good and happy and blah 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 with my service. And I had to be nice to everyone, and I couldn't be disrespectful because I was an employee and I had to be nice and uphold the standard. So there was this guy, and he came up to me, and I couldn't understand him because he had a very, very strong accent. So I felt bad, but I was like, what, excuse me, what was that? Because I always feel bad when I don't understand somebody's accent because I know they're trying. Anyways, so he was asking me, he was like, do you know where the chef hats are, man? Or I don't know. I honestly can't remember the accent. But he was asking me if we had chef hats, and I didn't understand it at first. So I asked a coworker, and then she listened and was like, oh, he's asking for chef hats. We don't have any chef hats, sorry. We're this teen clothing store, we don't have chef hats. And then he came up to me and he was acting kind of strange. He was like, oh, you don't understand me.
I'm Jamaican.
He was acting all weird, and he was like, I could teach you more about my culture. We should hang out sometime or whatever. He said something like that. And it was obvious that he was in his late 20s. I wish this was the end of it, but it's not. So he shook my hand and he wouldn't let go. He put his hand out and I was like, okay, and I tried to kind of pull away, but he was like this, his grip was so I was just like, excuse you? It was strange. So then, when I finally get free of this man, he leaves, and then I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after this, I see him come back into the store. And part of me is kind of terrified, so I go and kind of try to hide behind the clothes, I'm deep into folding them and stuff, and I'm just yeah, because I already notified my manager about the situation, because even if somebody won't let go of you, that's form of assault. I know that sounds crazy, but if I feel uncomfortable with the situation, somebody's touching me, I'm uncomfortable, it could be considered assault. So they could ask him to leave if he's acting if I'm pulling and he's grabbing on tighter, that's obviously weird. So she knew about the situation, and he came up to me and he invited me to lunch with him. He was just asking, he's like, do you want to get lunch with me during your break? When's your break? He's talking to me, and he knew I wasn't interested because before, I forgot to mention, he also asked for my number, obviously. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't give it to you, I'm working. So he asked me again for my number, and I said, I can't give it to you, I'm working. He's like, when's your break, blah, blah, blah. So, long story short, I was sorry, no. He's like, are you sure, are you sure? Kept coming back, asking me again and again, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure, I'm sorry, no. And then he did the hand thing again. Good. And I think he came back one last time and asked me for my number again or something like that, and that was the last time I saw him. So, but it was definitely an experience like no other, and it kind of introduced me to the whole retail employee scene where you get hit on. I didn't realize that it was an actual thing that occurred until I was actually in that position, and now I know that it's very much so there. Okay, so for the next stories, at my current job, I make coffee and stuff. And I've had a few strange instances. Like this one guy came up to me and he told me that I had like a glow. Like he was this older guy. He was like in his 60s. He was like, you have like a glow. And he's like, yeah, something about you. And obviously I've gotten compliments, but you know, I'm not going to consider that like harassment or whatever. Like that's kind of like normal. Like you're gonna get compliments wherever you work, you know, and it's not like something I find weird. The only thing with the glowing thing is that I've never heard anyone tell me that I had like a glow. Like, I'm not pregnant. You know, like the whole thing, pregnant ladies glow. Yeah, I ain't pregnant. No, sorry. So yeah, that I'm kind of okay with, you know, it's not bad. But I've had people be more frequent about it. Like this one guy, he said something to me, like he complimented me and I was like, thanks. And then he was like,
Girl, what's your heritage, girl? What's your heritage?
and I was just like, I'm a lot of things. Like, I'm like, I'm American. And he's like, no, what are you really? And I'm just like, you know, to be honest, yes, I am a lot of things. I'm 7 different things. And I'm thinking about doing more research on my heritage and making a video about it because it's really, I find it fascinating. But having a stranger call up to you and ask you about it is a little strange, don't you think? Like, strange way to hit on somebody. Like, you have pretty eyes. What's your heritage, girl? And when I told him that I was a lot of things, he was like, the other guy was like,
Oh, so you a Mike?
I was like, I guess. like, the guy came up to me and I was sitting there during my break eating, drinking, whatever, and this guy was like, he starts off asking me,
You know where the CDs are? Where can I buy CDs at this?
so I was like, I'm not sure like what place sells CDs. Like, sorry man, like I don't know, there's a few places that sell them, like, but I don't think they're in this mall. Like, I was like, sorry man, but I don't know. And then he's like,
You have pretty eyes.
I was like, thanks. And then he comes closer to me and he's like, how old are you? And I'm like, because I think at the time I was 16. Now I'm 17, but I was like, 16? And he's like,
Oh, no. Bye.
so then he walks away for like 2 seconds and then he comes back and he's like, do you have any like older sisters? And I was like, no. And then he continued to be like, oh, well, do you have any older cousins? Anything like that. I was like, well, I have one younger sister, but that's it.
How old?
13. And then he was like, oh, even worse. And then he literally sat down next to me. Like, he was like buddies. Like, hey, buddy. Like, he was buddying up to me. And I was just like, I don't know you. And then he was like, are you single? Like, he's just throwing away that whole spiel he did before where he was like, oh, no. Now he's like, are you single? So I was like, no. And then he proceeded to talk to me and he was just like talking about work and stuff, like, oh, you have a job, blah, blah, blah. And then he asked me again, are you single? And I was like, my relationship status still hasn't changed, honey. Still hasn't changed. That 2 minutes that passed, nothing in my life changed except for the fact that you're talking to me and you're being weird. Like, nothing's changed. Like, do you think my relationship status has changed? Like, so then he says some more stuff and then he asked me again, are you single? Like, no. I still have a boyfriend. Like, this guy looked like he could be like in his late 40s. Like, that's how old he looked. So I'm like, gotta get back to work. And he's like, oh, talk to you some other time. But yeah, that was probably the creepiest experience that I've had, because he was like, oh, like, single, what's your number, blah, blah, blah. And, like, it was creepier because he was so persistent. Like, it's one thing if some guy, like, you know, asks and you're just like, oh, no, and he's just like, okay, bye. This guy was like, like, he just kept on going. And I was just like, boy, like no thanks. I'm not about to be your sugar baby. Although, I don't really know if he's rich. Probably not. But, like, still, I'm not that kind of person. And yeah, I've had other experiences that I just, honestly, it happens so frequently that I kind of forget. Like, it's not stuff that, like, sticks in my mind unless it's, like, a thread or something. Like, I've had other, obviously, weird compliments that were given. But I kind of just, like, if they're super weird, I kind of just disregard them, because some people have issues and whatever, so I'm not going to call them out on that. But, like, things like the things that I've mentioned shouldn't be happening, especially not to minors, because, like, what's going through their heads? Like, they asked me for my age, and doesn't stop them. It should. You know? But, yeah, I kind of just, like, from that experience, like, I learned more that people are so desperate. Like, they'll literally, they see somebody they think is, like, kind of okay looking, they'll just be like, hi, what's your number? What's your number? Give me your number. Have my babies. Like, it just gets to be, like, okay, dude, like, let's chill, let's take a second and reevaluate our lives, you know? Yeah. So anyways, that was fun. Those are my weird work stories, and, like, I hope you guys like this video, and subscribe below so you guys can see my weekly videos. I plan on doing weekly freaking videos, okay, guys? So just, like, yeah, subscribe for that. And I plan on doing, maybe I'll do, like, a May favorites video. I don't know, like, it should be cool, it should be fun. Yeah, so I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Bye, all you sexy people.